fast am I? Good afternoon. Welcome along to Manx Radio's Mannin Line. And it's the first one of February 2026. Alex sitting in all this week for Andy, who's taken a week off. What would you like to talk about? It's an open line through until 1 o'clock. You can get in touch in any which way but loose, but the best way is by phone, of course. It is a phone-in programme. 66 13 68 is the number to call. You can, of course, send us the text or WhatsApp to 166 177. But the phone calls take the priority. What's been in the news? Government not making the savings that Alf Cannon announced they would do. And what is on your mind ahead of the general election? Yes, as the hours and the days are counting down. Thank you very much to, first of all, texter 047. This is Ian, actually. He says, does anyone know where to find the road closure order and demolition planning permission for the Castletown Golf Links Hotel? He says, I've searched everywhere. I would imagine, off the top of my head, I've been trying to have a quick look whilst on air here on the planning page, and if you look on the Isle of Man planning page, there's a fantastic map on there, an interactive map that you can go to, and it shows you all different sort of properties with their different planning permissions on there, and you can click and see on there. So well worth going and having a look at that. If not, Ian, maybe get in touch with the planning office. I'm sure they would be glad to help you on that one. So thank you very much for texting 166 177. As I mentioned there, Chief Minister, he announced that there was going to be a £10 million efficiency programme, which was designed to improve how services are delivered, not to cut or change them. How much money has been saved? Was that a realistic figure? Okay, or was it a top-of-the-head figure? How they're getting on? We're going to talk about that this hour. Also, in the news, we've heard how MHK Tim Glover has joined Rob Callister in saying he refuses to sign the Bishop's Vote bill over concerns about the diocese. And I did see a lot of social media conversation about this, that it wasn't so much what we'd expect of the, whether a bishop should have a vote or not, because, of course, a number of bishops in the UK, in the House of Lords, they still have their vote, but whether it was another part of the Isle of Man's heritage that was being destroyed, because there's a huge amount of our political system that's there really purely for heritage. There's no legal reason why we all stand around a hill in July with flags flying and things like this, which is a big cost. But it's part of our national identity and our heritage, and we cherish it. So there is that question as well. So 2 MHKs so far have said they won't sign the bill. And it does require at least 13 MHKs and 5 MLCs for it to proceed to royal assent. So do you have an opinion on that? Also, the Isle of Man Energy has raised concerns over the proposed legislation to overhaul regulation of the island's gas sector. Okay, and this is in response to the consultation on the draft gas economic regulation bill. Have you any thoughts on that? We might discuss that this hour as well. But get on the phone, 66 13 68, any topic you like, through until 1 o'clock, or send me a text, 166 177. Let's go straight to the phones, see if they work for me. Eric's on one. Good afternoon, Eric.
Hi, Alk. Different talk about the buses and mobility scooters.
Mm-hmm.
Just give you an update. Today, I'm ringing you from on the bus on the mobility scooter. They've finally got this all in order.
Excellent.
It's taken 2,310 days, but it's sorted now. Well, kind of sorted. It's not perfect, but I'm on the bus, so hopefully that's it all over.
I can hear from your voice, Eric, that you sound like you've got a smile on your face. What change is that going to make to your life now?
Quite a lot of changes, I'll be able to get up to Douglas more often. Like I said from the very beginning, one of the things I wanted to do was to be able to get to the NSC, use the facilities there. I'm not quite as fit as I was when I first started this 6 years ago. But that's the kind of thing I want to do, and just be able to come up and do some shopping and go out in the summer, and get on the bus where you don't have to drive, and it'll make a big difference.
Brilliant. Well, I'm glad to hear it's been a positive outcome for you and, of course, for others in your situation as well, Eric. Yeah. So is there a next step? Is there anything else you feel needs to be done, or is it a case of that we've finally got across that finishing line?
There is a few things need to be done on some of the pavement. at the minute, I can't get on or off the Ramsey bus station because the stop isn't quite right, and it's actually the same in Douglas. You have to get off in Douglas in Victoria Street, but I've been promised that these things will all be worked on now, and then hopefully in a short period of time, everybody will be able to use a bus on a mobility scooter wheelchair a lot easier.
Brilliant stuff. Well done, Eric. I know it's something you've been campaigning long and hard about, and thanks very much for the update as well.
Yep. Okay then.
Cheers, boy. Bye now.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Well, it's good to hear that, if you're a regular listener to Mannin Line, you'll know that Eric has been campaigning long and hard for mobility scooters and wheelchair users to be able to use the buses on the Isle of Man. And, you'll have noticed, even I noticed myself, and I'm not a mobility scooter user, the amount of work that's been going into various raised pavements. It wasn't obviously an easy fix, but it's good to know that... that has now been sorted. And what else have we got here? Thank you to Pat, who says, Peel are pulling the sand back from the seawall as usual in the spring to maintain their lovely beach. No doubt Port Erin will be doing the same, but Douglas, build the wall higher. Some capital city, says Pat. That it is interesting. A purely personal opinion, I've always felt that Douglas Council were wrong for getting rid of the groins. If you go along to beaches in places like Towyn and things like that, they've invested hugely in groins down the beach to stop all the sand moving, and it works. It seems to work. For some strange reason here, we seem to be, almost insistent that they wouldn't work. We've taken them away, and the beach is moving. And, the sand is building up against our new seawall there, just by the War Memorial. I went past it this morning, and the little drain holes at the bottom, which allow the water to drain out through the new seawall, are beginning to get blocked with stones that have been built up. So, what was it the answer that was needed? Well, who knows? I'm not an expert. That's my opinion. And thank you to Texter 673. Please could we be told which MHKs voted to abolish the bishop's vote, please? Okay, 673, we can find out information. I'm going to do a nod and a wink to my producer, Chris, who's going to look online for me to find which MHKs voted to abolish the bishop's vote. It will be available on the Tynwald website as well and in Hansard, so it's not as if it's a closely guarded secret. Let's have a look. John is on the line, waiting patiently. Hello, John, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And how about yourself?
I'm not so bad, sir. What would you like to talk about?
Well, you've given a fantastic introduction to what I want to talk about today. I couldn't have chosen a better day. But did you happen to hear Phil Gaughan's programme Perspective yesterday with Michelle Hayward and David Watson?
I'm afraid I didn't. That's always on my catch-up because I'm always playing trains at Groudle on a Sunday. So it's not. I've not yet listened back. So sorry, Phil. I will do. I promise. But fire away.
No. Well, actually, the overall impression I got from that was that both Michelle Hayward and David Watson were of the opinion that government is clumsy and doesn't work as they would like. They would like to be in control and decide how things would work, even though they say for the voter. So really, their true characters come out. That also ties in with the recent dismissals of Michelle Hayward and Alex Allinson. And it's been apparent for some time to a small number of people of us on the island that the political system needs to be changed. So we've come together to form Future Isle of Man. And it's been a long time coming, but today we've released our website. And hopefully people would be interested in what we have to say. We're trying to form a movement for better political governance, shall we say. Mm. And the website address, if anyone's interested, is all the W's .future, FUTURE, IOM.IM.
Now, I've got the website in front of me here, John. Now, so in terms of the website talks about, and I've only literally just seen this, a movement toward good governance, focusing on three issues, the three pillars that you believe must be addressed to achieve improvement. And, the democratic process is pillar one, a unified government is pillar two, and enhanced high-level strategic thinking is pillar three. Now, there are three areas that I know for well is a mixture between what government always talks about and maybe what private sector talks about, high-level strategic thinking. How are you going to turn what is a movement and currently a website into change? What are your actual practical plans?
Well, we're going to have talks. We're going to go around the island and we're going to have talks, and we're going to have a number of speakers. And hopefully people will engage with us. I was listening to Mannin line the other day where I can't remember which school it was, where the students were saying that they don't know very much about the political system. Now, to be honest, I've had to do an awful lot of research to actually work out how it all works. So it is convoluted and complicated. So we're going to try and, I don't know what's the word, we're going to try and not educate, but, enlighten people to explain things in a simple way of how it all works and what changes need to be made. So now when potential MHKs look at it, rather than trying to say, well, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do this change and that change, which we now realize an individual MHK can't do, that they'll come together and they'll see that there's if you like, a consensus on what needs to be done to make these changes for, the vote on the Isle of Man. Then they'll come together and put bills or whatever it is that they need to put forward to put a vote on to make these changes.
Okay, and John, I have to ask you, the one thing on this website, and you keep on saying there, we are doing this, and, we are describing it. Who is the we? There's no details as to who the personalities are behind this, because most political movements, you have a leader, whether you agree with their political principles or not. Every political person has, almost an open and transparent front person and who's behind this, whereas at the moment it's just pictures of people with shadows and we are going to do this. Who's the we behind this?
There's only three of us.
Wow.
Chris Robert Shaw, myself, and my wife.
Right, okay. So are you planning on being a political party? Are you going to be putting up people for election this year?
I don't think political parties work. You have a conflict of interest with a party because, well, just look what's happening in the UK. A party, you've got to have your allegiance to the party, but then your voters vote you in. So, like Michelle Haywood said when she was in the DOI, she represents the department, not her voters, not her constituents. It's a conflict of interest. It just doesn't work, and I don't agree with political parties. Whereas your individual MHK, there you go, he or she actually represents the individual. And that's the fundamental part of it. They represent the voters. They're not there for their own interest or what they believe should be happening. Otherwise, they would never have been there to begin with because it's the voters.
And are you going to be standing yourself? Is Chris going to be standing? Is your wife going to be standing this year?
We're not politicians. We are different professions, and we wouldn't be able to bring, should we say, our expertise in those professions to politics. It just wouldn't work.
I suppose I should say for transparency, Chris Robert Shaw is an ex-politician. He is a former government minister and MHK. So there's one out of the three of you that's got political experience there.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. It's a. What's the word? It's like you spend your first few years learning how it all works. And if you're learning how it all works and it's a broken system, all you're doing is doing the same thing again and again and again, expecting a different change, a different answer.
Okay.
What is that? What's the definition of that? Madness.
Yeah, that is true. Yes, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for getting in touch, John. Futureiom.im is the website if people want to check it out there. And we look forward to seeing what will be happening in the run up to the election and to whether you see any changes. What would success look like for you ahead of the election?
I don't know how. It's all evolving and developing, and over the few months we've been doing this, we had a clear idea of which way we were going to go, and then you find out certain things, so you change direction. And initially, our thought was a membership kind of a thing, something like that. That way, we'd have, I don't know, however many people, all saying, well, this is what we desire, and or if you like, a written statement, something. But now that appears not really the way to go. So again, if people want to get in touch, give ideas, thoughts, suggestions, please do. We're open to everything.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for your call, John. Lovely to speak to you. Take care. You
too. Thanks. Bye.
Good to hear from John there. Yes, another view on looking at the political system ahead of the election. We rarely see big changes in the political system over here. I know we went to ministerial government 40-ish years ago now, I think it was, which was a big change. Whether that's worked or not, well, that's a matter of opinion. And every time an election comes around, we always say this is the worst government in living memory, and government isn't doing anything right. And one side of the argument uses that as if to say, well, your argument isn't worth anything. So basically, stop whinging about how bad it was. It's always been bad. The other side of it is, well, if it's always been this bad, why isn't anyone actually doing anything about it? So that's the question. Right, we did have that question saying, who was it who voted for the MHKs who voted for and against the bishop's vote? And my wonderful high-speed producer that is Chris Quirk has got me the information. So it was the Isle of Man Constitution Bill 2023. It's introduced by Ramsey MHK Laurie Hooper, aims to remove the automatic voting powers of the Lord Bishop whilst allowing them to remain a member of both branches of Tynwald. The House of Keys debated and voted on this bill late last month as part of its passage through legislature. During the House of Keys vote on the 27th of January, 11 members voted for adjourning the debate on the Bishop's vote. All those who voted for that motion included Rob Callister, Alfred Cannon, Claire Christian, Julie Edge, Tim Glover, Tim Johnston, Kate Lord Brennan, Jason Morehouse, Andrew Smith, Chris Thomas and John Wannenberg. And 13 members voted against adjourning, effectively backing progress on the bill. So those voting against the adjournment, effectively backing the bill, were Dr. Alex Allenson, David Ashford, Claire Barber, Daphne Kane, Anne Corlett, Tim Crookle, Joni Farragher, Dr. Michelle Haywood, Laurie Hooper, Sarah Maltby, Stu Peters, Jane Paul Wilson and June Watterson. And after that vote, the House agreed to receive the Legislative Council's report and include a formal expression of support for the separate Diocese of Sodor and Man, which was part of the final legislative text. I did see something over the weekend on this, and I'll get clarification on this, that whilst there is this concern over losing the Diocese of Sodor and Man, there has to be a Tynwald vote on that, which is a bit interesting because I'd thought that Tynwald doesn't control what the diocese is. I'd imagine the church does, but we'll get clarification on that for you. A few more texts on Douglas Beach. G says, I've emailed numerous county authorities in the UK regarding groins. This is obviously the separators they have on beaches to stop sand moving and building up, asking if they're any good, knowing the answer would be yes. They all work perfectly, according to G. Be interesting to see some of those responses, G. If you want to send them in, that would be great. And Gary in Ramsey says, I know it's taking a long time, but isn't... Oh, crikey. That isn't discrimination against disabled people not allowing or putting into place where disabled people can even get on or off a bus. And our government always go on about how PC they are. It seems not. I suppose, Gary, that when it comes to the legislation about the Disabled Discrimination Act and the Equalities Act, is putting in measures that are reasonable and understandable. So basically, there are certain buildings and certain places that you cannot reasonably make alterations to make them completely and utterly step-free and disabled-friendly. So it's about making reasonable adjustments, and I suppose that's what they're doing. They're making reasonable adjustments to pavements and the buses in order to allow them onto the buses. Ryan, Alex, will you be standing for election? I don't particularly want to, thank you, Ryan. Life is stressful enough on a radio station without having to take that on board. Thanks very much for the support, anyway. Texter 068. Regarding the sand building up on Douglas Beach, I would agree with you about groins. Never thought I'd say groin so much on a radio programme. Do the experts ever stop to think why beaches have historically had groins? No, it seems not. Thankfully, they dug the stones away from the promenade wall at Laxey instead of building a higher sea wall, so there was some good progress in Laxey at least. There we go. Right, let's get back onto the phones. And Stephen's waiting patiently on 3. Hello, Stephen.
Good afternoon, Alex, and good afternoon, listeners. I wonder, could I just remind everybody that tonight there is a talk at the Manx Legion in Douglas entitled Immigration by Maria Bridson, who I believe is quite knowledgeable on this subject. So it'll be good to hear the technical issues and any other things that she's going to tell us. So I would urge anybody who has an interest in the hearing the unemotional aspects of it all would be good, because lots of times we only hear about pull the drawbridge up and let's have ID and all the rest of it. So I think this will be an excellent topic at the moment, because it is current and it's interesting everybody. So I would urge anybody with an interest in this matter to come down. Its doors open 7 o'clock. The talk starts at 7:30, chaired by Damien Giapelli. and I think there'll be a question and answer session afterwards.
Okay, and that's at the Legion Club tonight, is it, Stephen?
Yes, the Manx Legion Club in Douglas tonight.
Okay, excellent stuff. As you say, yeah, a topic that everyone has strong opinions on, and interestingly enough, some people have conflicting opinions depending on what questions you ask them, don't they?
Well, absolutely. I think this is the issue with any consultation that is given. It all depends on the leading questions that you're asked as to what results you get. So I've no idea how the talk will develop. I hope it doesn't develop into pull the drawbridge up and don't let any foreigners in. I hope it's received with openness to hear what the issues are.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll get that kind of debate up there tonight, and you might at least come to some consensus, whether or not it's answers, but definitely consensus.
Well, let's hope so. And as I say, if anybody wants to know about it and has got time, please attend tonight.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Stephen, for that. So tonight, Legion Club, as he says, doors open at 7 o'clock. Meeting gets underway at 7:30. Now, Malcolm has been waiting patiently. Now, hopefully, Malcolm, I believe you can give us some answers regarding the Castletown Golf Links hotel, or what was.
Good afternoon, Alex. Yes, I can. Firstly, to say that I represent Castletown Golf Club, who play their golf on the Langness Golf Course Limited's golf course. So I'm not representing the owners, I'm representing the members of the club who play their golf there. Mm-hmm. What we've established is that CCJ Group were appointed by Langness Golf Course Limited to carry out the emergency demolition of the former Golf Links Hotel, and because of the state of the building, from a safety viewpoint, they applied to the DOI for an emergency road closure order, which has been granted for a period of 4 weeks. And this relates to the where the main car park is. There's a road that goes down to the island. Mm-hmm. So the whole of that road has been closed for a 4-week period. However, the emergency demolition could take up to 12 weeks. So at some stage, if they require that road to be kept closed to the public, they will have to apply for the order, which is for 4 weeks, to be increased to 12 weeks.
Oh, right. So basically, that it's an element of safety. Thank you very much for giving us the details there in terms of the timescales. But it sounds really quite a normal process for an emergency demolition, that you've basically got to clear the area to make sure that no passers-by are going to get hit by machinery or any falling debris, I'd imagine. Absolutely
right. And as I say, the members were sent a letter which has also gone to businesses and residents in the area, dated 27th of January, and it basically goes on to say, following our appointment and further inspection of the site, it's become evident that the building is in a severely dilapidated and unsafe condition. The extent of structural decay, combined with repeated incident of unauthorised access and trespass, means that the building presents an immediate risk to public safety. Following consultation with the relevant government departments, it has been agreed that the building is to be demolished on an emergency basis. Now, it does go on to say other things, but just to give you a bit of background here, the course owners applied to have the premises demolished, and they met the chicken and egg situation, which was, we won't give you that permission until you submit your plans for the development of the site, and those plans are approved. So that's been bypassed by establishing that the building is in such a poor state of repair that the only reasonable thing to do is to demolish it. And what I'd also go on to say is that there's quite a lot of asbestos in this old building, and so a lot of the work will not be seen by the public, because they will have specialist contractors in there removing the asbestos, And then when that's done, as I understand it, a lot of the building will be demolished on site, crushed on site, left on site, and used as the base for the new hotel that will be built in due course, so that will minimise the amount of traffic that goes through Derby Haven full of haulage and the rest of it. They will try and keep that to an absolute minimum by using what they can as the foundation for the new hotel.
Excellent stuff. Well, thank you, Malcolm, for that update. We really appreciate that. And fingers crossed something new and exciting rises from the ashes of the old hotel.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Alex.
Thanks very much, Malcolm. Good to have Malcolm, a new caller, on as well, giving us details there about the works going on down at the Castletown Golf Links Hotel. Before we take a quick break, thank you to 762. What a total waste of time this Bishop's vote has been. This is interesting. He said, we all know that decisions are made outside and before any Tynwald sitting. In fairness, I would possibly argue that in theory, whilst MHKs might have received lobbying, they might get members' briefings and things like that, the whole point of a debating chamber is to stand up, debate your point, and if someone makes a point strong enough, it might change your view on the topic. Whether that works or not, that's a different matter. Let's have a look at some of your messages coming in. Big John says, after watching a programme at the weekend about wind farms in Germany, it was incredible how much clean energy they produced. My grandchildren have also told me that they had to complete an essay for homework about wind farms. I think it's a very good thing that our next generation has been taught the positives that wind energy can bring. Thank you, Big John, for that. Julian in Port St Mary says, this might be slightly off topic. There's no such thing as an off topic, is there, when it comes to Mannin Line? But I'm concerned about the empty buses going to and from the Sound on an hourly basis each day. Surely the buses should run to a seasonal schedule and operate as a shuttle service. The costs must be incredible. Or is the reinstated service being engineered to fail? Well, thank you, Julian. The other thing is with that, as you stated, reinstated service is it's now not a specific service. It's part of an overall service. So the bit to the Sound is a specific bit. It's not just one bus service that goes, from Port Erin to the Sound and back. So there are elements of some services are very, very quiet. You could say that with steam packet services. I've been on boats that are nearly empty. You don't stop running them if they're operating a social service. It's a case of that overall, is it worthy of continuing, and does it have a community value? That's one thing that government should really keep in mind with the Isle of Man, and you feel that a lot of bean counters in government have a terrible habit of ignoring, is something that has community value rather than just financial value. So maybe. Let's have a look here. The Manx political system is small, so MHKs have to play different roles at different times. As a minister, you play a role in executive government and oversee a department. As an MHK, you represent your constituents. As a parliamentarian, you also play a role in how democracy works. Thank you very much. That's a message from Michelle Hayward, Dr. Michelle Hayward. So thank you, Michelle, for that one. It's always nice to hear the views from the inside as to how it works, because on the outside, lots of people always have strong opinions without having walked in those shoes. And a final story before we go to a quick break and then back to the phones, that Isle of Man Energy has raised concerns over proposed legislation to overhaul gas regulation of the island's gas sector. Now, this is in responses to a consultation on the draft gas economic regulation bill that would introduce a new licensing-based regulatory framework for gas on the Isle of Man. They've been published. The consultation was led by the Communications and Utility Regulatory Authority, that's CURA, and focused on the provisions of the draft legislation rather than the wider policy principles behind it. However, the most substantial submission was from the island's monopoly gas provider, Isle of Man Energy, and it argues that the bill's objectives and necessity have not been clearly set out, making it difficult to assess on whether the proposed measures are justified. They say the draft bill forms part of longer-term efforts to formalise and modernise regulation of the gas sector, moving into a statutory licensing regime similar to those in other utility markets. Existing gas regulations is largely centred on tariff controls with more limited powers relating to standards of service and enforcement. Now, in its response, Isle of Man Energy accepts that billing problems occurred, but claims they were linked to the introduction of a new billing system, were not recurring, and have since since been resolved. And they point to a reduction in customer complaints and believe the consultation documents do not identify any ongoing consumer detriment that would require legislation of this scale. And that's the question. Do we feel that there are various areas in life where things are heavily regulated, and then other areas where it's a case of, just self-regulation, let the market work its own way out on this one? And you find that maybe in a capitalist society, which is what we are, that the market normally determines things in a more successful way than a regulatory approach. And do you have any opinions on that? Text 166 177. You can follow that story on our website at manxradio.com. Speaking of which, actually, there was an email that came in last week to Andy regarding DAB, which, of course, our broadcast regulator is Cura. And it was asking when DAB was going to be rolled out across the rest of the island. I think it was a Ramsey listener who felt disenfranchised because they didn't get nice, crystal clear DAB. And Andy told us about how it's a decision of Cura, because Cura is an easier acronym than to go through the whole Communications and Utilities Regulatory Authority. And someone sent me an email, and Andy did say that Cura are apparently blocking this. They're not blocking it. No, it's a case of that currently Manx Radio has got a test and trial licence. It was a 3-year test and trial licence for DAB, and there's a single transmitter that we set up in the Douglas area, which covers Onchan and down the Central Valley. Energy FM is also on that service. We offered it to 3FM. They declined. And to be part of it. And obviously Manx Radio would like to extend the service island-wide. Now, there is a regulatory framework and a process that you have to go through with Cura, the regulator. So in terms of what are the next stepping stones that we've got to overcome, the challenges we've got to overcome, yes, it's going through the process, the regulatory process with Cura. So I hope that's cleared that up. So it's not a case of that they're blocking it. There are just steps that we have to take. There are things in our way that you have to overcome. And then I'm sure at some point in Ramsey, do not feel disenfranchised. You will be able to hear our Tynwald's Lords and Masters on AM in crystal clear quality on DAB. Manx Radio. 20 to 1 on Manx Radio's Man in Line. Alex with you through until 1 o'clock, sitting in for Andy this week. 66 13 68 is the number to call. Thank you very much to Jenny, who sent me an email. I'll probably get to it tomorrow now, all about how our elected representatives are doing nothing and no one seems to be speaking up about the Douglas Bay horse trams that we've been promised to be reinstated. And it doesn't seem to be democracy in action. So thank you, Jenny. We will get to that email, I say probably tomorrow, because I've got quite a few callers now waiting patiently on the line. And Adam's first of all. Hello, Adam.
Hello, Alex. Are you all right today?
I'm not so bad, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks. I just want to start by apologising for when I came on several weeks ago. I incorrectly said that the Kelpropnose site up in Andreas was a greenfield site, and Andy did correct me. He said it was a brownfield site the following day, and I'm sorry for getting my facts wrong on that occasion. And I'm also sorry if I upset anybody by using the word corruption. Obviously, you're not allowed to use it without hard evidence.
Nope.
And but I was not implying that any individual was corrupt or any organisation. I was just speculating as to why the government might not be developing on its land, but it was pure speculation, and I apologise for for overstepping the mark there and using that word. So what I wanted to talk about today, to start with, I wanted to talk about the Bishop's vote. Obviously, there seems to be this attack on the Bishop from the Liberal left, from the leader of Liberal Mannin, and from Labour Party members like Joni Farragher and people. And you never hear them talk about the poor or ways to support the poor in the Isle of Man. They could be doing all sorts of things for the poor. For example, they could be people who work in nursing homes. They should be paid their lunch breaks. They should get food and catering. People working in care, in catering, they should get food at lunchtime, paid breaks. And these are all things that they could do to improve the lives of the very poorest in the Isle of Man who are working in the service industries, customer service industries and care.
To play devil's advocate, Adam, would you say that, well, as you say, they never talk about this, and there are always issues that need tackling in society. I'm not down in that. But in terms of maybe they would argue that things like the fighting for the minimum wage increase, which we know, there's been a change of plan on that. Surely they would argue that fighting for higher wages for lower earners and maybe introducing policies to try and eliminate period poverty and things like this. Surely that is some more what you describe as liberal policies to help people on low incomes.
Yeah, there are some things they do, but they could do a lot more, especially for people working in the non-governmental sector, in the private sector. For people, and you can bring in workers' rights and things. There's all sorts of things they could stop people working more than 12-hour shifts. They could bring in limits on things. They could stop companies forcing people to work extra hours by bringing in more sort of limits, not being able to work more than sort of 40 hours a week or something for specific industries and things, to stop companies coercing and forcing people to work longer than they want to, which is obviously bad for them. So they could do a lot more, I think, than what they do at present. But then instead of doing that, they seem to attack the bishop. You've got a woman, a bishop. Well, it doesn't matter whether she's a woman or a man. You've got the bishop there. She's been there for centuries, ever since Tynwald was founded. The bishop's been involved. The Bishop of Man, as we've had a bishop since it's known that we had a bishop since 498 AD. And they want to remove her. It's just they want to attack things. They want to destroy the constitution of the Isle of Man. They want to take away the voice that's there for the poor and the needy. The voice, the traditional voice of Christianity, which is there for the good of the poor, the needy, and for looking after each other and loving thy neighbour and everything else that goes with it. And they want to take that away because they've got nothing else to do and they can't do anything else. They don't seem to be able to effectively improve the lives of the poorest people in the Isle of Man. They don't build social housing. They're not bringing it. The government's not encouraging local authorities or giving any directives to build social housing. There's all sorts of things they could do other than attack the bishop. And it's the same if you look at England. It's all about the left, liberalism on the left, all about destroying the family unit, all about turning men and women against each other, all about, the demolition of society, post-structuralism, post-constructivism. You see it everywhere in society. It pervades the arts as well as politics. It's a society-wide movement, which is all about destroying, and, the Fabian Society are behind it in the UK, and forces like Laurie Hooper, Liberal Bannon, and the Manx Labour Party, they're behind it in the Isle of Man.
Do you feel then, Adam, that in order for democracy to work as it should, and they're meant to be representing the people's voice, I mean, I haven't got the information to hand, but I'm pretty sure that not every MHK in their manifesto at the last election proposed that they were going to get rid of the bishop's vote. And yet it was one of the things that seems to be one of the biggest talking points of the last 4 years. And as you say, there doesn't seem to have been a huge amount on the issues that people on the outside are worried about. And you could go into a yes Prime Minister world saying, well, I'm sure the civil servants and the top officers love the fact that they're spending most of their time navel gazing about a vote in the Legislative Council. Do you feel then that if people aren't happy with the removal of the bishop's vote and the more liberal members of Tynwald, that this September surely is our opportunity to vote them out and say, actually, I don't care what electioneering you're bringing up. Over the last 5 years, you've done something that I did not vote you to put in, so sorry, you're out on your ear.
Yes, I think people do need to sort of decide that the MHKs have not been doing the things that they elected them to represent. I mean, instead of fussing over the bishop's vote, they could be looking at industries. A lot of people leave school at 16 in the Isle of Man. What do? Because the finance sector and things, they want to employ people with A-levels or with university degrees. They don't want, in relevant areas, they don't want to employ people leaving school at 16, so they become tradesmen. But in the past and things, we've had industries in the Isle of Man with when Manx Airlines existed, there was a big sort of aircraft aviation facility down at Ronald Way where they repaired all the British Airways aircraft. We've had Fort Street services in the past in Douglas. Once upon a time, they employed 300 men. So there's all these things like boat building, yacht building. They could get those industries over. They could be looking at ways to get those industries over that are craft, making things, using your hands, things which people who've left school at 16 would be able to do and get apprenticeships in. And because I think a lot of them leave and become builders in the UK or tradesmen in the UK, and it's just so sad. Instead of doing that, they're worrying about the bishop's vote. Well, I support the bishop. I firmly support the bishop. I'm well behind the Church of England and its values, and I think it would be a tragedy to remove that cultural link that we have to our past. The island's divided up by the parishes, the sheathings, everything revolves around the church in terms of the island's constitution, and I think what they're doing is desecration. But I did want to talk about another topic today, if I've just got time.
I'll give you about 30 seconds because I've got a load of people on the phone, Adam, so go on.
Okay, well, today is World Wetlands Day, and the Biosphere Isle of Man has not mentioned that it's World Wetlands Day, and I'm just wonder why they haven't mentioned it, because obviously we've got the curraghs in the Isle of Man, a very unique ecosystem, where grey and goat willow grow together in the wetlands, and there isn't any biodiversity action plan for the curraghs, and I just wonder why that is the case, that Biosphere Isle of Man doesn't have a biodiversity action plan for this most unique of Manx environments. And I think it's sad that they don't, and they haven't acknowledged World Wetlands Day today.
Okay, well, thank you for that one, Adam, and bringing it to our attention. Maybe, if there's someone from DEFRA regarding the biosphere who can actually get in touch with us at Manx Radio and let us know. Why aren't we acknowledging that when we're a World Biosphere location? Thank you very much, Adam, for your points on there. Andy's WhatsApped in saying, Alex, I'm agreeing with Adam. What are the specific proposals of Laurie Hooper and Joni Farragher to end the dependency on food banks, which is a shame on the Isle of Man? Yeah, there is that. One of the richest nations on earth. We're not in the bottom percentage in terms of our wealth as a nation, yet we have a food bank. So what is being done about that? Thank you to a person who wished to remain anonymous, saying the man on the phone now is right. Government workers in the care sector have to do 14 hours a day, no official break, 8 days in a row without a day off, and a lot more. Then extra hours are just expected, and then the management wonder why they are run down. Thank you very much for that message on that one. Yeah, are we teetering on a care time bomb really there when it comes to the amount that's required for our ageing population? I'm happy to discuss that with you. 6613 at 68 is the number to call. Julian's been on. Hello, Julian.
Hey, Alex, how you doing?
I'm not so bad, mate. Sorry you've waited so long. Go on.
That's all right. Yeah, I agree with Alex, and I'm finding the removal of the bishop's vote, despite almost 55% of the island identifying as Christian in the last census, and the remaining almost 44% containing people like Betty, who are atheists, but they believe that the bishop's vote should remain. It feels rather similar to the railroading of the 20-mile-an-hour rollout. I don't recall anybody really asking. It just seems to be just getting shoved through, doesn't it?
Do you think it's more on the lines of the principle of someone not being elected having a vote? Because, you're right. I can't find any evidence of where the bishop's vote has swayed legislation one way or the other as if it's causing a dramatic problem. And, that... I'm not sure how to describe the overseeing democracy on the other side of the water there, the one that, we have independence, but they do still keep an eye on us from a governor's point of view. The House of Lords over there has bishops in with votes. So whether it's a religious issue or whether it's more of just a personal chip on the shoulder that everyone else has to be elected into a position directly or indirectly to have power, and whether this one person isn't directly elected by the public. Do you think that's it?
Well, none of the MLCs have ever been elected for anything.
Well, one
was a failed attempt.
Well, the argument is with an MLC, and I'm blatantly playing devil's advocate, is that they are elected by your elected representatives. And some would argue that at the moment, the MLC makeup is a poor makeup, because when it used to be retired MHKs, they had a long experience of scrutinising legislation, because the MLCs are not there to act as additional MHKs, they're there to scrutinise legislation. And if you haven't got a background in a parliamentary career, you haven't got necessarily that background in being able to scrutinise legislation. So surely, when it used to be nicknamed the retirement home for MHKs, they came with the experience, didn't they?
Well, sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. Ask the people, do they want the bishops' vote out or not? By the way, speaking of bishops, just to want to finish off, because I know you've got lots of callers, Bishop's Avenue was quite interesting. 56-year-old Muhtaba Khamenei, who is the likely successor to the Ayatollah Khamenei in Iran, has used a middleman called Ali Ansari to purchase 11 mansions valued together at around £100 million on the Bishop's Avenue in Hampstead. Ali Ansari was sanctioned by the UK government, describing him as a corrupt businessman in October last year. But what I would like to know is, as Ali Ansari is the beneficial owner of Birch Ventures Limited, registered at 14 Athol Street, and it's showing live on the company's registry website at the moment, is the Isle of Man government going to do anything about that?
That's the question. This is following on, just for those who aren't in the aware, this was a story that was published in the Mail on Sunday, wasn't it, about the links between the son of Iran's leader and mansions in Britain that were worth more than 100 million, and the homes were bought through a network of shell companies, one of which, yes, is registered in the Isle of Man. I don't know off the top of my head, but that's the story as it stands at the moment, isn't it, Julian?
Yeah, and then you've had the recent one with Dr. Faisal Maserani, who's been facilitating changing apartments that he owns, telling them that there's a fire hazard and they have to get out, the local residents, and then immediately shoving in asylum seekers in using another company that's a shell company to hide his identity as well. So just makes you wonder, are there any more of these revelations to come out, especially with Moneyval just around the corner, isn't it?
Well, I'm sure, if nothing else, Moneyval will uncover them, because I don't think they don't really sit back on their laurels, Moneyval, when it comes to investigating things, do they?
No, true enough.
No. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Alex.
Cheers,
right,
Julian.
Cheers.
Take care, bye. It was always great to hear from Julian. We were going to talk to Howard about the Groins and Douglas speech, but Howard's had to go. Sorry about that, Howard. Hopefully we might pick it up again tomorrow. Just to go through a few more of your messages to finish off. Tony and Douglas backs Adam all the way. Here. And texter 011. Another day, another Julian. Well, 011, if you'd like to ring in, the phone lines are always open. I'm more than willing to talk to new people. It would be great. Neil in Douglas says it's basically the left trying to destroy tradition because they hate it. It's interesting. I hadn't heard so much of an argument between left and right in Manx politics until very recently. In fact, I think the first time I've really heard it in the chamber was when the Chief Minister was addressing the removal of the Treasury Minister and the Infrastructure Minister, and suddenly it became talk on socialism and everything, which we used to watch from afar in the UK, talking about left and right politics, and it now seems to have come into the Isle of Man. Let's have a look. Thank you very much to H. I do wish people get their facts straight. Nobody is getting rid of the bishop, just their unelected vote. The unreasonable threat to remove the post has come from the Archbishop, not local politicians, because apparently the vote is the most important reason for having a bishop here. Although, as we did say, H, the Diocese of Sodren Man is linked to a Tynwald vote on that. I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you for all your contributions, and thank you very much to the whiz man. He's not a whiz kid anymore. Chris Quirk on the phones.